Let's start a new page in our intuitive watercolor journals and talk a bit about the process behind painting without a plan and why having a journal like this is so important to the creative process, even if you're not a watercolor artist. My intuitive journals are spaces for me to just play and explore and have no rules or guidelines for what it is that I'm doing. I would say that this journal and this process is single-handedly responsible for building confidence in my intuitive painting process for larger works and for my original paintings that I actually sell. This process becomes like a meditation. I grab my little table, a drink, my supplies, and I just tune out the rest of the world for about a half hour to an hour. The idea here is to not have any intention on creating something I love. So a lot of these entries are incomplete or paintings that I consider really ugly. Like this one here, I just like blocked out. I was feeling awful that day. This one here, I was in Costa Rica. These ones, I just was trying to process something and I really had no plan around any of these. And if you go into it with no plan, you will challenge yourself in ways you can't even imagine. For tools, I just always have my watercolor paints, whether it's a palette that's pre-mixed or my own mixed palette. This paint cup that's really awesome that I love from Paint Puck. And now we start with a clean slate, a fresh page to anoint. For this page, I'm going to start with a wet surface. So I sprayed water down on the pages before I go in with my pigment. So I don't know exactly why I did this. I think I just wanted to try something different because I always start with a dry page, and wet on wet watercolor has a bit more of a fluid and loose feeling. And I was feeling a bit loose and a bit fluid. If you're a creative person or a wannabe creative person and you feel like having a art journal like this or a process like this is a waste of time, I promise you that you are mistaken. If you say, well, every time I start a creative journal or an art journal, it never looks like the way other people's do online and it always looks so ugly and awful. I hate most of the paintings that are in this journal. So if you liked them or you thought that this looked pretty or this journal looked great or you're like, oh, mine would never look like that, that's how I feel about mine when I compare them to people who have like masterpieces in their journals and that create like start to finish realism in their journals. So just remember, there is always a bar where you're going to compare yourself. Like you're always going to compare yourself to another standard, no matter how good you get at this process. So don't ever feel like there's a moment where you're going to arrive and be like, oh, I create the best journals. I create the best paintings. And if you do, that's great. Then I would love a little bit of that confidence. But I have not found that yet, not at this point in my journey of painting and being self-taught for the last 10 years or so. So I started with a light wash of a fluorescent green color and I let it dry just a teeny bit as I'm painting. I'm not drying in between these layers though so far. I am just letting the paint be very fluid and very wet. So as I said earlier, this is a wet on wet watercolor technique, which means that the colors are going to bleed into each other a bit more than if you were doing dry on dry painting or dry on wet, which means, or wet on dry, sorry, wet on dry, which means painting with wet paint on a dry surface or a dry piece of paper. I like to have several different types of paintbrushes and tools available for this process so that I'm not just stuck with a standard brush, so I can stretch my brain and stretch the techniques just a little bit further. And you can really grab anything. You can grab household items, you can grab random broken jewelry and make marks, and you can carve into watercolor, which is fun. So there's a lot of things you can do. So don't limit yourself to just a standard paintbrush. Have some fun and explore what you have all around you. You'd be surprised what comes from it. And it's always funny to me when professionally trained artists tell me that I am not a real artist because I'm using my fingers or because I'm using a spoon or I'm using a paintbrush that's actually a makeup brush. Like, you have so many critics out there. They're going to tell you that when you're painting intuitively and you're not following any rules, that you should be following some type of rules, and don't listen to those people because they are not having as much fun as I am in their process. I can promise you. And the idea here is to allow yourself to let go and just have a little bit of fun. I'm going in now with a darker green to start building in some depth and dimension. And at this point, I still have no idea what the theme or feeling is that's coming out onto the page, but there always is one. So I'm always waiting for the moment it starts to speak to me and tell me what it's trying to say. And I get discouraged a lot throughout this process thinking, ugh, this is ugly, I hate it. But then I just let go and I keep going anyway. So you can see I pulled in this rake-like brush. It's just a standard fan brush, but I had some dried paint on it, so the bristles are a little bit separated, and it creates this beautiful rake-like effect from the dark green into the light green. And once I did this swiping motion once, I was like, yes, this is the movement. This is it. I could feel it in my nervous system. It felt so good swiping the paint like this that I just kept doing it. And then the theme and the vision and the feeling came to me. And it was at this moment that I really accessed my breath and I started to really breathe. And that's a really important part of intuitive painting, is to make sure you're breathing, because when your brain is working so hard to try to create a concept from nothing, when you have no plan, you can forget to breathe. So make sure you breathe. And for the theme that came to me during this, it was this idea of the grass always seeming greener on the other side. So the grass is always greener. And for me, why that came to me, I think, from this is because I've been processing some things related to my relationship with my father, who I am estranged from. And it's been about a year since we've spoken, and it's been tough. And I often spend time comparing my relationship, or lack thereof, with my father to other people who have healthy relationships with their dads. And so I think this was kind of a moment of letting myself feel the fluidity that I feel when it comes to that relationship. Sometimes I feel really hot about it and really bothered about it, and sometimes I feel pretty cold about it. But I always know that from a very young age, I've been comparing my relationship with my parents to other people and thinking, wow, the grass is really always greener on the other side. And my life is beautiful. And despite that lack of relationship with him, the grass is actually greener here in this space where I've made peace with a toxic abuser that has spent a lot of his life putting himself before me and putting myself before him, just by doing this very practice here, instead of feeling bad for myself or sorry for myself or any of those things, is a testament to how much we truly can heal from complex trauma. So that's the theme. Pretty deep, huh? And that's the beauty of this process and having an intuitive art journal. You don't have to write down any words. You don't have to articulate any feelings. You can just let the movement and the colors and the textures tell you what it wants to tell you. And it might take a while for you to be able to pull themes from your paintings. I've also been in therapy, and I am a licensed therapist in private practice. So I have a lot of training and practice in identifying emotions and feelings, despite being somebody who for a very long time historically had a very hard time identifying my own emotions. And so this process has helped me verbalize more of what I'm feeling. It's helped me be able to say, oh, this is something that is still bothering me, or this is something that I'm still carrying or processing, rather than just compartmentalizing it away and pushing it down and repressing it, which is something that a lot of us do, and I did for a very long time. And that kept me creatively blocked and stagnant because I was not allowing my feelings to process through creativity. And for me and in my world, that's the number one reason that we create, is to process, even if we don't even realize in the moment that we are processing something. For my therapy clients who want to process creatively but feel completely incapable of creating, they feel like they aren't artists, they aren't creative, they can't even draw a stick figure. I get that all the time. I tell them, okay, I want you to go get a pack of Crayola crayons and a mixed media journal, and that's it. And then when they come to session, they bring their mixed media journal, they bring their crayons, and I say, I want you to pick some colors right now before we start our session based off how you're feeling. Don't overthink it. Just grab the first colors that you're drawn to, and we're going to use those colors for the session. And then for the remainder of the session, I tell them, I want you to just scribble while we're talking. I want you to scribble when you feel called to it. I want you to scribble when you are feeling certain emotions. I just want you throughout the session to scribble. And if they forget to do it while we're talking and they're getting into it and they're intellectualizing and they're just looking at me through the screen, I say, hey, you haven't scribbled in a while. Why don't you scribble? And that scribble journal will come with them to every session. And then eventually when we look back on it, we have this pile of squiggles and lines and scribbles and colors that so clearly represent the emotions and things that they're feeling. You'll see on their calmer days and their more grounded days that their scribbles are more firm and grounded and consistent, where on their days where they're feeling frazzled or lost or broken, it's more all over the place or scattered or minimal. Especially in grief, you won't see a lot of marks. anxiety. You'll see a lot of erratic movement. And so you don't have to create images. You don't have to use watercolor paint. You don't have to use fancy techniques. You can literally just take a pen and a book that has blank pages in it and just every single day create something based off of the pressure and the movement of your hand at that time, which inevitably is indicative of the pressure and the movement inside your heart, your mind, and your body at that time, even if you want to intellectualize it away and say, no, this is just me scribbling, this is nothing more. Sure it is. Sure, it's nothing more. So as you can see, I've taken out my fun little scrapey tool here. It's a 4-sided scrapey tool. I don't know what the official name of it is, but it has all sorts of different scrapey textures. And I go in here and I'm carving into the darker green, and it's pulling up the darker green. So I'm creating a bit more structure and contrast here. And again, I'm just doing this because it feels good. I'm doing this because this is just kind of what my brain and body is being called to do. I really was not overthinking this piece. Sometimes it happens where I get really caught in my intellectualizing of the painting, but for this one, I was actually really happy with it throughout the entire process. And again, that does not happen every time, especially when you're first starting out. So I think the benefit of doing the wet on wet for this one is that I was able to work with this painting a lot longer than I would have if I had gone with wet on dry. I really was able to go in and refine this a lot in ways that I wouldn't have had every layer been dry. I wouldn't be able to keep reworking it like this. Even here where I am taking the chunkier dark pigment and I'm now pulling it with a very fine, small detail brush, and I'm pulling it down to create these roots that are growing into the ground, which I was having a lot of fun with. Again, it's the sensory experience that I'm having that is really defining this for me. It's the fact that my brain and my body and my heart and my nervous system are all working together here. And there's no harsh critic. There's no harsh judger trying to tell me that what I'm doing is ugly. It's just working. And this takes a lot of time and a lot of practice. And the only way you can get to this level of confidence in doing this, even if it's not consistent, is by being consistent and being consistently okay with creating ugly work, having a journal of scribbles, of ugly things that mean nothing. And then eventually you'll get to the place where you find the meaning and you find the vision. But you wouldn't expect a newborn baby to know how to read a book right away. You wouldn't expect a toddler to know how to write in perfect handwriting. You have to practice. You have to start with 1 line, 2 lines, make those lines into a shape. Like, you have to learn, and you have to give yourself grace, just as you would a little baby trying to learn this process, because that's what you are. You're a little baby. If you're new to this, you're a little baby. And if you are not new to this and you're a professionally trained artist who's just trying to loosen up, then you're also new to this. Just because you've brought years and years of precise painting ability to this does not make you any more prepared for the trials and tribulations of a intuitive abstract process. Abstract painting is not as easy as it looks. It's not anyone can do that. And if someone says, oh, my toddler can do that, then their toddler is really, 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 really talented, and I would like to speak with them immediately. So we have finished this painting and this video, and if you enjoyed the chat and the intuitive watercolor session, please leave a comment and let me know. I haven't been posting here as much lately because I've been super busy in my private practice, and the world is really hard, but I really want to keep coming back. So let me know what you think of this painting and this process, and I hope you find time to let yourself create and feel something today. Thank you so much for being here and for joining me. I'm proud of us.